Everybody thinks that Canada is the safe country that's next door. But there are now 7 organized criminal cartels that operate in Canada, and that's been confirmed by the police. I bring the receipts in this interview you're about to hear. So look, I'm former law enforcement. I worked for a global Fortune 50 company in security for both Canada and the Northeast United States. I worked on global security teams. So I understand the consequences for America. And this is a serious topic. I think America needs to pay attention to the corruption that is next door. Now, Canada has issues with human trafficking, drug cartels, money laundering, political corruption, and America is not really paying attention yet. It's been brought up by the FBI, Kash Patel, and President Trump, but I want to set the record straight here. I got asked to do an interview with my friend Mark Patrone on his radio show that airs in Toronto. It has an audience of about 1.5 million people in the GTA area. Now, he asked me to come on, and we started off talking about the problems with two-tier policing, anti-Semitism in Toronto, which I think is huge. Same issues you saw with the FBI under Comey. And I came in hot for this interview. So without further ado, here's the interview with Mark Patrone.
Our good friend, Ross McLean, security expert, joins us from the GTA. Welcome, Ross.
Hey, good to join you and the family out there on the road, Mark, to talk some truth about what's going on. Well, all ready for it.
According to Roman Baber, he's a Conservative member of Parliament for York Centre. He says, they were marching on the weekend to Bathurst Manor to intimidate the local Jewish community. That's that. Not going to stop. And when Baber asked about it, let's listen.
Of this crowd when they walk up Hove Street into a residential neighborhood?
Well, they're pushing the line for sure. They're trying to annoy residents. The issue that we have to deal with is this criminal activity.
Well, I submit to you respectfully that their intent is to intimidate local residents, and they do so successfully. My constituents are frightened. They chant. They yell at neighbors. You would agree with me that local residents would rightfully be scared when they see that. Would you agree with that or not?
100%, but it does not reach the criminal threshold of harassment.
But does it? Ross, as a security expert, what do you think?
I don't know who that is from the Toronto police that's answering that question, but that's just a load. That's just a load. And I'm going to tell you why that's a load. I've been talking about this for a long time. And by the way, I just want to be clear about something here, Mark. This isn't, to me, as a guy who used to be a cop in law enforcement, this isn't a Jewish versus Muslim thing. This is an enforcing the law thing. I would not be saying anybody is allowed to do what has been done to the Jewish community to any other community. I wouldn't want to see that done to the black community. I wouldn't want to see that done to the Muslim. I wouldn't want to see it done to any community where you've got marches for 2 years yelling for death and murder and calling people genociders, making throat-slitting remarks, all of these things. None of it goes so far beyond the level of what the criminal code defines harassment of that it's unbelievable to me that he could sit there. And, if any one of the Toronto, I'd love for maybe Chief Demke could come on the radio with you and me, and we could have a debate about it. And I'll talk to him about what the law says about what criminal harassment is and why I believe he has not been doing his job. So what happens is just last week, people might have seen it, the Toronto police arrested a 34-year-old woman after 2 suspected hate-motivated offenses on TTC buses. This is a woman, her picture was out there. She went on the bus and saw some Jewish kids on there and started saying the same things that these crowds have been yelling for 2 years into the neighborhoods. What did the police charge her with? Criminal harassment. That's what they charged her with for yelling at some kids on the bus. So for this police rep, whoever he is, to say that going and marching with the flag, dressing up like a terrorist, which these guys were doing, being aligned with a terrorist organization, going beyond the limits of just communicating your speech, which, by the way, I put this to the chief on numerous occasions. Criminal speech is not protected speech. You're not allowed to do it. No one's allowed to run around yelling that they want to kill people and that people should die. And I put one up last week to the chief. They even published it. They had a sign that says death, death to the IDF after a an IDF soldier was attacked at that incident down associated with what was Ryerson University. The law is very clear on it. What's not clear is that it's not being enforced. He is not doing his job. He's not following the law. And I don't put this on the frontline cops. I talk to them. I go down to these protests and I look at them. And I do not put this on the frontline cops. They're doing what they're ordered to do. Somehow there's a rule called where they would say, oh, we're here to be neutral. That's not, the police's job is not to be neutral. The police's job is to enforce the criminal code. And it's so crazy that, as you recall, they arrested Ezra Levant for being a problem to the peace when he's down there asking questions. But they won't arrest the leaders and the promoters of these marches that go on for 2 years. So that's my rant on that. I don't believe they're enforcing the law, and I think Roman Baber should go even harder on this. I find it's unbelievable that what Toronto has become, that simple criminal code actions are not being enforced, Mark.
And if anybody thought that raising their flag would have, maybe led to a toning down of the harassment, I don't think it is at all. It only encourages more of it. I mean, you could look at what the criminal code has to say on criminal harassment. Repeatedly following, communicating with, watching, besetting a person's home, workplace, or engaging in threatening conduct where the victim feels afraid for their own safety or someone else's safety, and the protester knows or is reckless about causing that fear. So,
Mark, you just nailed it right there. Yeah. Because what the law says, if the victim, as Mr. Baber just said, feels fear, if they feel fear, that meets the bar for criminal harassment. It meets the bar. And it even is, as you just read, even if the person says, well, I didn't really intend it, but they're acting so recklessly, there's no way you couldn't know that what you're doing was there to invoke fear. So there's the bar right there. And let me tell you how low that bar is. Where this is usually used is in intimate partner violence. So a woman says a guy is harassing her, an ex-husband, an ex-boyfriend or something. He won't go away. The police come and tell you once, hey, you've been told, don't do it. You show up one more time anywhere, at her work, at her home, make a phone call, they can charge you with criminal harassment. One incident of harassment can constitute criminal harassment. This has been going on for more than 2 years. And it's, as a former law enforcement guy who believes in justice, who believes everybody needs to be able to live safely in this community, I don't care what race or creed you are, you deserve not to have this happen to you. And the law is not being enforced. That's my position.
Let's take a look at this clip. This is Pat Morris, inspector for the OPP, claiming that at least 7 transnational criminal gangs are operating in Canada, and they have managed to compromise employees in both the public and private sectors. Let's listen.
The first reality is that sophisticated criminal organizations, Mexican cartels, South American trafficking networks, Chinese production operations, and transnational criminal organizations in general are using our country as a critical node in global supply chains. These are not traditional drug trafficking and money laundering organizations. They operate with unprecedented sophistication. This resulted in the listing of 7 criminal organizations as terrorist entities in 2025. Intelligence indicates that at least 7 major transnational criminal organizations maintain operations in our country. They have systematically embedded operatives within Canadian shipping logistics chains and export facilities. They have cultivated relationships with corrupted public and private sector employees, including port workers, warehouse supervisors, transportation and licensing officials. They understand Canadian supply chain vulnerabilities, and they exploit them methodically.
Your thoughts on that statement?
Well, first of all, listen to the contrast between what this OPP commissioner or superintendent just said and what the Toronto police said. Toronto police guy, I don't know if it's criminal what they're doing, right? I don't know, right? It's see nothing, know nothing. But listen to the powerful statement by this OPP officer. He says that we have embedded organized cartel criminals in Canada that operate at a level much higher than your typical organized crime and money launderers. And they have infected every area of Canada. They're exploiting it to the nth degree, both public and private, for doing it. And I have been saying, as longtime listeners to your show will know, who've heard me as a guest on your show, when we talked about all those cars that were being stolen in Toronto, people being taken at gunpoint, and the cars are in shipping containers and gone the next day, right? What was I saying? Somebody's getting paid, Mark. Somebody's getting paid. That's the only way you get this stuff out and through. When we talked about the borders and all the people coming in who aren't being checked and all of the other issues, I told you it was basically like human trafficking that was going on. And somehow somebody's getting paid for that. That's how certain people get in. Somebody's getting paid for that. But we don't have anybody looking into this. We had the banks, our major banks, a couple of them, all nailed with massive, massive fines for money laundering. And Toronto is well known, in Vancouver, as one of the top money laundering capitals of the world. But we're not seeing any sanctions here against the banks here for doing any of that work. We're not seeing anything brought up about it. Yet we're having people debanked here by banks because the bank doesn't like their reputation, and we're cutting off you from having the ability to bank. We've had the Foreign Interference Commission. We forced them to call a Foreign Interference Commission that was a whitewash that came out saying at least 11 members of the government were influenced by the People's Republic of China, the Communist Party. And then they said, well, we're going to bury that for, what was it, 50 or 75 years? None of the information can come out. They still haven't been identified. We've got billions of dollars that go disappearing out of our government. I mean, look at some of the deals that took place with the slush fund. We never got to the bottom of the slush fund. We just had $20 million of pharmaceuticals just disappear from our stockpile. Gee, those don't get sold on the black market somewhere, right? So we've got a massive compromising with seemingly no investigations into all of these problems. The Liberal government and the mainstream media went on a massive propaganda program telling everybody how, Trump said fentanyl comes from Canada. Oh, look, only 1%. Oh, none of it comes from Canada. Oh, there's none. Oh, look, he's a liar. Trump's bad. He's wrong. Well, guess who was wrong? Trump was right. We are a massive supplier of different types of drugs, not just in Canada, not just to the USA. We've seen it to New Zealand. We've seen it to Mexico. We've seen it everywhere. You know, we just saw the riots down in Mexico where everybody was going out surrounding the government there because of it's operating as a narco state. And the cartels put many of the politicians into power, and they've murdered many of the politicians who don't cooperate down in Mexico. And here we have this commissioner saying that they have infiltrated public and private to the nth degree in logistics. And I could go on for another 10 minutes. I used to work for a worldwide logistics company in security. I know all about it and how it gets compromised. And it's not that hard if nobody's investigating to compromise logistics and shipping terminals. It's not that hard, Mark.
Yeah, we're a sieve. I think it's like 1% of the containers that come into the country in the port of Vancouver get actually checked. This is Peter Navarro. This is the White House senior counsel talking. This was last March. I don't think anything's changed since Peter Navarro said this.
Sabers but I don't want to contribute to that. What I want to say to every world leader who gets up in arms when all we're asking for is fairness and to have them stop killing our people is, please listen to us. Canada could do a lot more. Canada has been taken over, Brett, by Mexican cartels. They bring up these pill presses and printers and the medicines that they fake. You can't tell the difference.
Yeah, it's major
Pharma
problem.
companies can. You need a spectrometer to do.
It sounds like he knows what he's talking about here, and it's leading to the deaths of thousands of people.
I'm trying to remember, Mark. I can't remember specifically, so I'll just say this in general. I thought there was a point there about 4 years back or something where the government made it much easier to be able to come from Mexico into Canada. I think they dropped the visa requirements and other background checks before you came and all of the. I can't remember it specifically, but I remember there was something. Now, I wonder how that came about, that they decided to change that piece of legislation. And let me jump back for one more second here. Our former Prime Minister Trudeau, remember with SNC Lavalin, his interfering in what I claim, I believe was obstruction of justice. He buried in a finance bill a law that changed the rules for how you can get a non-criminal guidance from the prosecutor's office, so you can do something other than be convicted of your crime. It was sort of like the SNC Lavalin edition that was buried in the bill that was in there. So they decided to change that to allow, you just tell me, how does that happen? How do you get legislation buried in a bill that makes it easier for people to commit crimes? It's stunning to me, and we have an absolute lack of interest by the RCMP. If I was to follow the same rules that they talk about for the fentanyl into the U.S., I would say, well, how many convictions have there been for their investigations into corruption in the federal government? Oh, well, there's been none. Oh, so there must be none, because we haven't even had one investigation or one conviction. So there must be no corruption. We need a new setup, Mark, with a strong, independent prosecutors and investigators to deal with corruption in this country, because we're just overrun with it.
Got maybe a minute left. I want to play this one clip. This is about border security under the Liberals. Let's listen.
Screening.
Okay, hold on a second here. So you're saying that a refugee claimant coming to Canada goes to a machine and says, I want to be a refugee in Canada, hits a button, and they're in the country? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's not a machine, it's an application. So the one-touch system, they're given instructions on how to use that. That connects directly with IRCC, and they're given that documentation to complete on their own once they're in the country. We're not doing that.
So basically they take out their phone, theoretically, and they tap it a few times, and they are now in the country as a refugee accepted by our country.
Yes, we get some basic data from them, and again, we do the biometrics.
I mean, basically it's open borders. That's what we have here. I mean,
that's what you got. And guess who's taking advantage of it? The organized criminal empires. They're laughing at us. And we're sitting here as citizens hearing, saying, no, there is no problem. I've got videos up on this on my channel, Mark, on my YouTube channel at McLean Chronicles. I'd ask that if anybody who wants more information on this, they could give me a follow there and a like. And I'll be putting up some more this week on the corruption in Canada, because it's just unbelievable.
How do people access that content?
Right on YouTube at McLean Chronicles, so they can catch me on X. I have a link to my YouTube channel on my bio.
Ross McLean, the best. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for listening to my podcast. If you like the information here, please like, subscribe, give me a follow. Helps the channel. This is Ross McLean, and I'll see you next video.